And these laws are extremely powerful. They are stronger than anything we can even imagine. Let's take a person who is highly respected in society, someone people truly value and appreciate. Would the country's economic instability strongly affect them? What do you think? Would it or wouldn't it? No? In reality, they are not as dependent on such factors. Of course, if war breaks out, everyone suffers. But if there are simply some economic hardships, a person who is socially significant, very needed and valued, does not depend to the same extent as everyone else on economic or social problems. Many assume that this kind of independence comes from money. There is a widespread belief that if someone is wealthy, they are truly protected. And from an external perspective, this is partly true. A wealthy person usually doesn't worry about whether they will have food to eat, and they don't worry about whether they'll be able to drive a car, whether they'll have housing, or whether they'll have a job. Money does provide a certain level of security in society. However, when we speak about the laws of a happy life, about how to actually be happy, money becomes, on the contrary, a very powerful destructive force. A woman recently came to see me, and all her relationships with her relatives were completely destroyed. They divided the inheritance that came from her husband. Her husband had passed away not long ago, and he owned several apartments. The relatives literally fought over how to divide this property. This destructive force of wealth silently hangs in the air. When a person starts pulling resources toward themselves, when they become the owner, many people inevitably appear around them, hoping to somehow gain access to this possession as well. This is unavoidable because money carries power, and this power affects the surrounding space. To be honest, I have seen very few truly happy, wealthy people in my life, but they do exist. And these happy, wealthy individuals are no different from ordinary happy people, because they follow the same moral laws, the same laws of subtle energy functioning. They are forced to make sacrifices, live a devout life, give their wealth away, participate in charity, and take care of their relatives. And since they have more money, they must do this even more than others. Only then do they become truly happy because their relatives respect them. People around them treat them with great care and respect, and their psychological and emotional problems also begin to resolve. In my life, I very often encounter the inner struggles of extremely wealthy people. I don't want to mention any names, but I am talking about a wealthy and very famous person. I just want to tell you that I have witnessed several cases that deeply shook my life, where a person was left completely alone, no mother, no spouse, no friends they could lean on. Everyone looks at them as nothing more than a wallet full of money. There is only a harsh, ruthless way of defending one's own interests in relation to that person's money. This is the reality of wealthy people, and honestly, it is a life you wouldn't wish even on your worst enemy. Very often it is truly horrific. On the other hand, I have one very good friend. He lives in Delhi. He is extremely wealthy, owns several factories, yet lives a quite ascetic, detached life. He spends nothing on himself, he thinks about his employees, he serves God, and so on. When I visited him, I saw his estate, quite a large one. I don't know how many hectares of land it includes, but it is a huge house. There's a large garden. During my visit, I saw what kind of relationships he has with his subordinates. When I entered, these people, those who take care of the garden and the household, looked at him with eyes full of happiness. Not in a servile way, not rushing toward him like it is often done in India. They looked at him with immense love, and he, in return, approached each one, asked how they were doing, showed genuine care for everyone. Do you understand? These people truly love him. You can really feel it. He gathers them, holds spiritual classes and programs with them, talks to them about life, helps them, supports them, and takes care of them. His relatives love him deeply, and everyone around him loves him as well. Why? Not because he has a lot of money, but because of the kind of person he is. And this is what the laws of morality are about. Even if a person doesn't have a lot of money, if he treats people correctly and cares for them, he will also be loved. Because a person can be loved not only for their money. There are other values that can exist between people. And these values exist within the framework of moral laws. These laws are barely studied in our modern life. That is why I want to draw your attention to this, because a person who does not know these laws will never understand their true purpose in life. For example, when a woman develops feminine qualities within herself, she enters the sphere of happiness. The laws of morality mean that a person can live either in an energetic field of happiness or in an energetic field of suffering. Everything depends on how they behave in their life. Actions, words, human conduct is divided into three parts. There are thoughts, there are words, and there are actions. These three components are clearly structured and defined. There is no ambiguity here, no misunderstanding. It's exactly the same as the laws of physics. A person behaves one way and receives one result, or behaves differently and receives a different result. For example, a woman may have her own point of view in relation to her husband, but she expresses it to him gently, without crashing head-on into him in the literal sense. In that case, she receives a specific result. He cannot commit violence against her. At most, he may try to act somewhat strictly toward her, but in this situation, she becomes stronger. Her point of view holds value. She maintains self-respect. And it becomes very difficult for anyone in the family to treat her badly or roughly. Why? Because she is behaving correctly. Some women may question this and say, "Why should I speak to him softly and express my opinion in such a humble way?" Why should I do that? Why can't I just tell him directly that he is wrong? Because that is the law. Why do two balls collide and bounce off one another? Let's protest against this. Why don't they just stick together? They collide once and merge. Physicists, why do atoms collide and fly apart? Why is one ball heavier and another lighter? They collide and the lighter one flies off more strongly. Because that is the law. And a man's intelligence is several times stronger than a woman's. I am not speaking about sensitivity or the ability to feel truth. A woman's intuitive sense of truth is several times stronger. A woman is the heart of the man. and a man is the intelligence of the woman. If a woman decides, I do not want to speak humbly to my husband, then a law is being violated. And this will lead to consequences. He becomes angry, constantly irritated, starts to posture and assert dominance. Sometimes women come to me and pronounce a verdict. They say to me, my husband beats me. I kept wondering why he was beating her. What was the reason? Is he really such a monster? So I said, please come with your husband. She came with her husband. A normal guy, a normal person. You would never even imagine that he could hit someone. And I kept thinking, why does he beat her? And then I tried to understand, and I figured everything out. I understood the whole situation. It turned out that the woman simply did not know how to talk to her husband. She spoke to him in a provocative, confrontational way. And when someone talks to a man like that, a chain reaction starts inside him. He feels that he is being treated unfairly, and he starts winding up more and more, building up pressure inside. She doesn't back down. And at some point, something inside him snaps, literally, because every man has a rooster reflex, you understand? Every man has a rooster sitting inside him. And one moment it just switches on, and off he goes. There's nothing you can do. His eyes go like this, one pointing here, the other somewhere back there. He's gone. You can't reason with him. He's not thinking. Later he says, forgive me. Did I actually hit you? Yes, you hit me. Well, forgive me, please. I don't remember anything. What happened? And who is at fault in this situation? Of course, the woman is at fault. She should not behave like that. She is breaking the law. She must speak to him calmly, humbly, and always explain what she wants. Always calmly and humbly. Ladies, try a simple experiment. Whenever you want to explain something to your husband, close your eyes mentally and imagine who is higher right now, you or him. If in your mind you feel above him, stronger, more significant, he will absolutely rooster up, 100%. But if you mentally place yourself slightly lower when you want to tell him something, then he will accept what you say. This does not mean weakness. This is not a sign of weakness, this is a sign of strength. Because from the perspective of psychic energy, a woman's psychic force is 6 times stronger than a man's. For example, a husband comes home. He is extremely dependent on a woman's psychic energy at home. At home, he is the dependent one. He comes home and says, why aren't you smiling? She answers, why should I? I'm not smiling because I'm in a bad mood. And he says, well, you can't live like this. What do you mean bad mood? Because she creates the atmosphere in the home. A woman creates the entire atmosphere with her psychic energy, and the man is dependent on this atmosphere. He comes home, and he depends on what she radiates. That's why he says, come on, smile. That's why he brings flowers. Do you think it's for nothing? He just wants a normal atmosphere at home so that he can survive in the difficult circumstances of his own life. And then he roosters up, pretending he's the tough one, you understand? If someone is truly strong, they don't rooster around. Once I was in the subway. 2 men were standing side by side. One kept roostering, puffing himself up. The other just stood there, quietly watching him. Eventually the first one kept going, and the calm one just hit him once in the forehead, bam, and the rooster fell flat on the floor, and the calm one just walked away. And that's always how it goes. The one who is truly stronger is calm. And who roosters at home? Usually it's the man making a scene. The woman says, all right, calm down, calm down. And if she says calmly, why are you acting like this? He immediately goes, ugh. His brain short-circuits instantly. Why? Because her energy is stronger. For example, he insults her. She looks at him and says calmly, well, actually, you are the fool. It's hard for him to back down. The energy is stronger because a woman's energy is more subtle. The subtler the energy, the more power it carries. That's why nature arranged it so that a woman, being psychically stronger, should behave with more humility, and then harmony arises in the relationship. Then there are no problems at all. But if you constantly irritate a man who is psychically fragile, he becomes like a wild animal. He becomes enraged and starts lashing out. Because physically he is stronger, you see? He is mentally weaker, but physically he is stronger. So he uses his physical strength. He simply has nowhere else to go. This is how all moral laws operate. This world is woven from truth. The power of truth is everywhere. This whole world is woven from this force. And this force establishes its own laws. There is a deep meaning in everything, even if we don't understand it. Whether we understand this meaning or not, certain knowledge exists. For example, the scripture says that a wife should speak to her husband with humility. That's it. We should accept this as a law. This is how it should be done. But why? If you have the inner capacity, try to understand it later, just like a physicist understands the laws of his field. He says, do it this way and that way. For example, first you light the match, then you turn on the gas on the stove. You think, why should I do it in this order? You turn on the gas first and then everything explodes. And the physicist tells you, there are physical laws. If you don't accept them, you'll get thrown away from the stove. I once had such an incident. I turned on the oven first and then kept trying to light the match, but it wouldn't light. Then I went to get another match somewhere else, and when I lit the oven again, it exploded. I don't even remember how I ended up sitting against the wall. There was an explosion, and I was blown back. These are the laws, you see. You can't do anything about them. Moral laws work the same way. They are very powerful by nature. They work. For example, a girl thinks, why would I live with this fool? She leaves him. He starts suffering, begging, come back to me, I'll forgive everything. She says, no, I won't come back. I don't love you. I like someone else. Why should I live unhappily? Better you be unhappy. That's your problem. And so she leaves him, just like that. Everything seems fine. But the laws still exist. You can't build happiness on someone else's suffering. That's what the law says. You can't build happiness on someone else's suffering. That's it. Even if you twist yourself inside out, go to church 50 times, and get 50 blessings that everything is fine now, it doesn't work like that. You think, I left my husband, but I repented, so now I'm good. The system doesn't work that way, because you must pay in full for what you did. You see? You can stab someone, repent, and now you're good, but the person is still dead. You see? The same happens when someone suffers deeply. If he suffered for a year or two, and then you get married again, repented, and now you're good. Okay. Externally, everything seems fine. Repentance helps a person live on, and that is good. But that does not mean the laws stop working. You can't build happiness on someone else's suffering. And that is why the person who abandoned their partner will inevitably face difficulties in their new family. This usually comes in 3, 4, or 5 years. At first, someone leaves their partner. They didn't leave for nothing. They suffered in the relationship. Things weren't smooth, but the problems had to be solved, not escaped. And when they leave, for some time, they receive the fruits of their asceticism practice. They suffered. Now they experience some happiness. But after 3 or 4 years, what happens next? Then misfortune comes. Why? Because you committed violence and you must answer for it. And the new family begins to fall apart completely. This is not right, that is not right, everything feels wrong, everything is impossible. And people don't know how to live together anymore. If they endure it, they stay together. If not, they will have to separate. You see? And only in the third marriage, such a woman finally gets a chance for a normal life. Only after one more cycle. when she has truly repented for what she did before and understood why she suffered. Only after that can she start building a normal family. If she understands. If she doesn't understand anything, the cycle repeats. And if she continues to leave one partner after another, her life becomes even harder. You see, these are the laws. The laws, we don't know them, we can't change them, we can't do anything about them. These laws are extremely powerful. You see people being born with deformities, people getting hit by cars, ending up in accidents, or developing cancer. Do you really think this is random? People try to explain it. Bad ecology, parasites, toxins, cancer-causing agents. It's all nonsense. What parasites? Are you really looking for injustice in this world? There is no injustice here. Yes, the ecology is bad. I know a man who lived in Chapevsk, a place where you practically couldn't breathe. There is a chemical plant there, and the air was basically unbreathable. And he was completely healthy. He passed away at over 70. A perfectly healthy person, never sick. Even though the air there was impossible to breathe, chemicals cannot affect a person that strongly. Or take food products, it's ridiculous. In Moscow, people obsess over buying clean, organic foods. And they get angry if they find anything wrong with them. But every single day, we inhale through our lungs 1,000 times more exhaust fumes from cars than any harmful substances those foods could possibly contain. It's ridiculous to think that food alone could ruin your health. We breathe all of this directly into the blood through the lungs. 1,000 times more exhaust fumes. The entire city, all cities are in this gas from cars. And this is also poison. These exhaust gases contain all the same harmful substances in their gaseous form. Do you think this is what makes us sick? This kind of toxin can be removed from the body within a week by cleansing practices and a healthy lifestyle, and nothing will remain. The body will be completely clean. In the same way, the ecological environment of a city could fully recover within a year if people simply stop polluting it. The atmosphere would become clean, the soil clean, the water clean. Everything would become pure again. This earth contains so much power for self-purification that we simply cannot imagine it. But you cannot purify the moral and psychic atmosphere in a single year. You see, if we keep creating trouble, if we keep acting foolishly, it does not cleanse instantly. We will have to suffer for it sooner or later. This is the real problem that we don't solve. Malignant tumors do not arise because of parasites. Parasites simply settle where conditions are favorable for them. A suitable environment forms, they settle. Why does one person get tuberculosis while another doesn't? 5 people may live in the same household. One has tuberculosis, the bacteria are in the air, yet only one gets sick. Why? Because it is not destined for the others to get sick. The body has a force that protects it. Why does someone develop tuberculosis? Because they've lost faith in life, they no longer want to strive for happiness. They walk around depressed, they messed up at some point in their previous life. A subtle energy force of heaviness falls upon them, the energy of dejection. Because they suppressed others before, now they themselves become suppressed, and this leads to tuberculosis. Because of depression, a state of psychic oppression. And depression arises from a tough fate. Why does someone develop schizophrenia? It weighs down on their head. They say, something is pressing on me psychically. I can't cope with it. I can't sleep or eat. I hear spirits or voices in my head. I don't know what to do. Schizophrenia begins. This pressure can last for several years. A person breaks and then they stay broken for life. If they break, they will suffer from it. How can one avoid breaking? One must fight for their happiness. They must radiate positive energy, wish everyone happiness, pray. A person can even overcome a psychic illness this way. Why? Because they create a positive atmosphere around themselves, even while a destructive force is rising from within and trying to ruin their life. This is the real problem. Not that someone became schizophrenic because of polluted air. The worst pollution is in our heart. Deep inside, we carry a deep memory. All our actions reside there. This inner force interacts with the planets moving above us. They also have a subtle body of the mind, psychic energy. This contact creates tension. The contact produces tension, and from that tension a force rises up into our mind and begins to pressure the psyche. A person feels terrible, an energy radiates from them that makes others avoid them. People shrink away from them, no one wants to talk to them. Or, for example, a wave of hypersensitivity comes over a person. They start getting offended at everything, at every tiny thing. This is how karma works. It is very powerful and unyielding. Therefore, a person must follow the laws, otherwise they cannot live happily or fulfill their purpose, their work. There are laws of behavior in the workplace, for example, in relationships. When a person enters a team, they must show deep respect to the senior. If they even harbor a slight inner dislike toward the senior, their ability to stay in that team begins to collapse. Why? Because with that attitude, they destroy the atmosphere of the group. If the senior is not respected in a team, the team will fall apart. That's it. It simply cannot exist. Through such behavior, a person destroys the collective. If you see that the senior is wrong, then go and tell them humbly. If you are truly so right, then tell them in humility so they can understand. If you cannot do that, then simply work humbly. Don't be angry at anyone. Don't resent anyone. If you get angry, fate will hit you on the head, and you won't be able to do anything about it. You see, every person can make mistakes in life. But the junior should not treat the senior with hatred or hostility. This is a law of life that we must follow. This law also applies to the relationship between parents and children. One astrologer came to America to give lectures on astrology. He asked the audience, "How many of you respect your father?" A few people raised their hands. There were about 30 people in the room. "How many of you respect your mother?" A few more raised their hands. Then one person stood up and said, "Why should we respect them, and why should we be obligated to do so?" And the astrologer replied, "This is a law. I came here to explain to you the laws of this world." Astrology describes these laws. Actually, astrology does not describe the laws themselves. It describes the results of those laws. Astrology shows what outcomes you will get based on whether you follow or break the laws. These outcomes are already reflected in your chart, because from the moment of birth it is determined how life will influence you. You see? He says, "I want to explain these laws to you. Respecting your elders, your father and mother, whether they are good or bad, is a law we must follow." People started shouting, "This goes against human rights," and so on. He said, "Guys, goodbye. I'm not going to give a seminar here because you don't understand." You see, you don't understand that this world has laws that exist independently of American laws. You see, you will be held accountable not according to American, but according to the laws that govern this world, in this universe. They have nothing to do with American legislation. You see, American laws are just our attempt to regulate life somehow. But life is already regulated by higher forces and we cannot rewrite it. It's like writing a law that says, a small ball bounces off a big ball gently, and the big ball bounces hard. Fine, you wrote this down. What's next? Does anything change because of it? Nothing changes at all. Everything stays the same.
Excuse me, this vehicle needs to be moved from the passageway, please.
Here's a law for you. F23133 Toyota series, it must be moved immediately. Nothing you can do. That's just life. That is why we must study these laws. We live in this world. For example, the law of truthfulness. We must know what this law is. The first rule of this law is that a person must know that absolute truth exists. Some people say everyone has their own truth. This kind of thinking can cause great suffering because truth is not something personal. There is absolute truth, and in every person it resides in the area of the heart, right here. It is called the voice of conscience, or the oversoul, or the voice of truth. So absolute truth exists, and that is what truth is, not illusion. If a person doesn't understand this, then they have nothing to compare their life with. They don't know whether they are acting correctly or not, and as a result, they get hit hard by fate. When a person doesn't understand whether their actions are right or wrong, they are like a chick whose eyes haven't opened yet, running somewhere blindly. And where does such a chick usually run? Right under someone's foot. It always runs exactly where it shouldn't, and ends up losing its life. You see? And that is how people live. We can live like blind chicks. But we have truth inside, and we must learn to look at it. Why are people afraid to look inside? Because it hurts. There is an inner force here, and we have 3 possible relationships with it. This is also described in the Vedas. The first type of relationship is when a person tries at any cost to stay under this inner force, to be guided by it. They say, please correct me, punish me, do whatever you want with me, I want to know the truth. Such people are called people in pure goodness. And these people know how to live. They feel what is right. The second type of person says, yes, I agree with you. With this inner force, I agree. Yes, truth exists, I accept that. But sometimes I feel that it is unfair toward me. And so I will act in a way that I feel is right for me. This person sometimes agrees, sometimes doesn't. When it benefits them, they agree. When it doesn't benefit them, they disagree. When it's not beneficial to him, he disagrees. You see? For example, someone says to them, stand in the corner, you misbehaved. They say, it's not fair to put me in the corner because I'm good. You should just tell me I'm wrong, that's enough. I shouldn't be punished. So the person rejects the truth. These people are called people in passion. There are also those who are completely against the voice of conscience. They don't want to admit any truth in this world at all. They say, my truth is the only truth. How I behave, that's the truth. These people are in ignorance. You see, the Vedas describe 3 categories of people, and each of them lives a different kind of life. People in pure goodness are always treated kindly by fate. This atmosphere, this energy of truth from which the world is woven, it treats them well. They live in harmony with it. This means that they have strength in life. They can withstand the blows of fate, resist illnesses, and even keep their spouse from leaving. They have inner power. People in passion adapt. They don't have their own strength, but they look for where the strength is. Just like the little jackal from the Jungle Book, remember? He said, we're going north. Yes, we're going north. Wherever Shere Khan went, he followed. If Shere Khan switched sides, he switched sides too. People in passion watch which way the wind blows. Today they work here, tomorrow they work there. Today they are friends with one person, tomorrow with another, depending on circumstances. They think, wherever the strong force appears, I'll join that side and everything will be fine. They simply don't understand that real strength is not in people. It is in the space around us, independent of people. And such people suffer often because they are extremely dependent on public opinion. For example, today the country thinks one way, so they think that way. Tomorrow the country thinks differently, so they think differently. Today one person is right, so they follow him. Tomorrow another is right, and they follow him. But this is wrong. Of course, we must obey the laws of the state, but there is also truth. We must understand it inside ourselves, otherwise there will be problems. There are people who try to handle everything with their own strength. They create gangs or aggressive groups around themselves. They are constantly defending themselves, trying to protect themselves from everything. They believe that their personal strength is the main thing. If someone says something they don't like, they beat him. Well, that is, they live by their own strength, so to speak. They think strength is everything and that no laws exist, only power. And in the end, their own friends end up defeating or destroying them. Why? Because time catches up with them, and fate affects these three categories of people in different ways. People in pure goodness have good karma that works from the very beginning. This means that when the time comes for suffering, they first receive a warning. They hear, "Don't go there, the snow will fall on your head." They think, "All right, I won't go." And that's it. So bad fate does not hit them too hard. It touches them lightly and then stops. When a person is in passion, their voice of conscience works more weakly. The voice of conscience says, "You must not behave this way." They say, "No, for me it's fine, everything is okay." And then fate hits them on the head, whack. They say, oh, I agree, yes. And then things get a little better for them. So they do get hit, but they try to come to their senses in time. They still have some connection to the voice of conscience, but not a strong one. Let's say a girl started getting involved with some guy, and her husband tells her, "I'm leaving you. I can't live like this." And she says, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I won't do it again." And she tells the other man, "Please forgive me, we can't meet anymore." A person in passion tries to come to their senses just in time. A woman in pure goodness simply never meets with anyone except her husband. But a woman in ignorance doesn't care at all. Her husband says, "I'll leave you." She says, "Go ahead and leave, idiot." So he leaves her. She keeps living with her lover. And at some point she receives a very heavy blow of fate because she keeps accumulating sin and her life becomes very hard. This is how people relate to this energy of truth in three different ways. Three categories of relationships. One group lives happily because they follow the laws of the world. The second group lives sometimes this way, sometimes that way. And the third group, as the saying goes, were fools to begin with. You see? So these are the patterns. What is truthfulness? Truthfulness means that a person tries to accept the truth about themselves as it is. They don't try to justify themselves. How can you know whether you are a truthful person or not? For example, someone tells me, "You acted badly." Someone comes up to me and tells me, "You did wrong." How does a truthful person react? They think, "I need to reflect on this. Maybe I really acted badly." And they begin to think, "What exactly did I do wrong?" And eventually they understand what their mistake was. A person in passion immediately starts justifying themselves. They say, "Why did I act badly?" Actually, I didn't act badly. I'm this and that. If they hadn't treated me this way, I wouldn't have done that. They are the ones to blame. Then the person who accused them becomes the bad one, because they acted badly too. Everything gets flipped back onto them. This is a person in passion. But in reality, God often speaks to us through people. We don't understand this, that something inspires a person to say something. Telling someone they acted wrongly is dangerous. You can ruin a relationship, create conflict. But for some reason, a person still speaks. Some force inspires them. And this force has a very high nature. This force does not depend on the person. It is very powerful by nature. If a person says something like this, maybe God is speaking through them. And truthful people, they understand the principles of this world very deeply. For example, there was a holy person who became very ill, and according to his fate, he wasn't even supposed to receive medical treatment. But the disciples, they say, "We will find you a doctor." His students, he told them, "What doctor? In this period of my life, you won't find a single proper doctor for me." They said, "We'll find one anyway." "All right, go look." They found an Ayurvedic doctor. The doctor arrived drunk. He looked at him, examined him briefly. The holy person asked, "What do I need to do?" The doctor said, "You need to walk more." and left. And the holy person told his disciples, "Thank you so much for bringing this doctor. You were absolutely right. It's very good that you brought him." He began walking and recovered. Why? Because God told him what to do even through a drunk doctor. But we don't even want to listen to a sober person who tells us how to live correctly. Sometimes a sober person comes up and says, "Please don't do this, you'll have problems." And we say, "I know what I'm doing." And that's it. And then the husband leaves. And that becomes a problem. So what does truthfulness give a person? What does truthfulness grant? Truthfulness is a force that gives a person, first of all, the ability to influence the people around us. If a person constantly listens to the voice of truth within, an inner strength appears inside them, strength that naturally inspires respect. Because sometimes you look at a person and you don't feel any respect at all. Why? Because they deceive, twist things around, manipulate. It's impossible to respect them. Sometimes you look at a person and you feel a mild respect, a sense of trust. The person isn't very strong inside, but they're decent, normal, a good-hearted person, someone you can talk to, negotiate with. And sometimes you look at a person and from within them emanates such inner purity, such strength, such firmness that you immediately feel deep trust. And this strength that inspires trust, deep respect, this is the power of truth. This is called truthfulness. Sometimes a person follows the power of truth for many years. They accumulate a lot of this inner strength. It becomes very powerful inside them. But at some point they step off the path of truth, stop harmonizing with the laws of this world. And yet the power of truth remains inside them. But now it begins to harm them. And with that same power of truth, they begin telling people the harsh truth straight to their face. There is a very effective way to punish a person. Just tell them the truth. But how you tell it, that matters. You can say it with violence. For example, a child comes home to his mother. The mother is in a bad mood. She argued with her husband and the child got a failing grade. She says, "Aha, you got a bad mark." And she asks him, "What grade did you get?" Even though she already sees the mark in the notebook. He is already humiliated. She already saw it. So why ask? What grade did you get? The truth is on her side, right? And on his side it seems there is falsehood because he is the one who messed up. He says, "A failing grade." She asks, "And why?" She is angry at her husband and needs to vent on someone. And here's a perfect opportunity because truth is on her side. She can unleash her anger. He says, "I answered poorly." "And why?" "How long did you study yesterday?" "And who was playing football instead of studying?" And she starts pressuring him. He doesn't know what to do. Yes, he played football. Yes, he didn't finish his homework. She says, "Next time you do this, I don't know what I'll do to you." And suddenly she feels better because now the fool is him, not her. It means he is the bad one, not she. You see? A very convenient way to shift the problem away from yourself. This is called passing the blame. In reality, this whole exchange is really a conversation with the voice of conscience. Let's say she argued with her husband. Although one shouldn't argue with the husband, one should try to befriend him. If she argued, it means she failed to handle the situation. Her mood dropped. Why? Because she couldn't handle the situation. The mood got ruined. And to fix her mood, she needs to shift the blame onto someone. Who is the easiest target at home? The one who is weaker. And who is weaker? Children. Therefore, onto the child. So everything gets dumped on him. All right. The second example. Let's say someone is in a bad mood. Often elderly people experience this. With each year of life, a person is supposed to live a more righteous life. They must devote more time to self-improvement because with every second of life, more and more negative karmic energy comes out from the depth of the heart. Why is life so heavy for elderly people? Because with every passing moment, more and more negative karma emerges. A small child is born and feels wonderful, just lies there and feels great. Looks at the world and feels good because no negative karma is coming out of the baby yet. Everyone enjoys being around a small child. People kiss them, cuddle them, because good energy flows from them. Baby is wonderful. This is the mercy of fate. But the older a person becomes, the more negative energy flows out per unit of time. And when a person is elderly, no one feels delighted around them. It's heavy being near them. Why? Because from them radiates this heavy force. And elderly people, not understanding that old age is meant for spiritual life, for prayer, for connecting with God, fail the exam of fate. The wisdom of old age is that life gives a person more opportunity to learn to live correctly, because life itself starts squeezing them, forcing them to suffer. A person must develop more inner strength and engage in inner work more and more each year. If they don't, they begin to feel that some kind of injustice is happening. Their mood worsens, and elderly people sit on benches and begin gossiping about everyone. Why do they do this? To justify themselves. I feel bad because they are all bad. And if you walk by, they will tell you everything about yourself, your nose, your glasses, how you walk. About everything. You will learn everything about yourself in 1 minute. That's why old grannies are a special form of life. A very particular bench-sitting form of life. They sit there and wag their tongues, commenting on everyone, saying this one is bad, that one is bad, this, that, and everything else. Why do they do this? Because life has become hard. There is no other reason. But the elderly body is not meant for this. It is meant for learning to love everyone, even through tears. This is the wisdom of old age. Life becomes hard, but a person continues to love more and more. And such people become very valuable to society. The Vedas say that old age is meant for spiritual life. This is the law. If a person does not follow this law, they will suffer, and they will bring suffering to others. You see? When we don't know the principle, we begin to suffer. Truthfulness makes a person perceptive. They begin to see the situation of their fate. They begin to sense when trouble is coming. They begin to foresee a difficult period in their life. They begin to understand why something happened to them in the past. Truthfulness also gives this ability. Truthfulness gives good memory, because when a person forgets what happened to them, when they ran into a mistake in life, a truthful person remembers it. They say, I will never do this again. But after some time they forget. Why do they forget? Because they lack truthfulness. A person cannot remember the truth of their own life. They forget because there is not enough truthfulness in their life. The lack of truthfulness clouds the mind. For example, a young girl, a virgin, intuitively feels that having casual sex with guys is wrong. She can't explain why it's wrong, but she knows it's wrong. But once she gets into this situation, she no longer knows that it's wrong. She says, it's fine, nothing terrible. And she starts living like that. Later, she doesn't understand why no one wants to marry her. You see? Because when a person is pure, truth lives inside them, and they understand everything. As soon as truth disappears, the mind becomes clouded. The person can no longer understand what is happening, why life becomes so difficult. What's the reason? Because when a person commits a bad action, the force of that action begins to destroy their life. We think, I committed a bad action and that's it. It's gone. No one saw it, no one knows, everyone forgot. But no. When a person commits a bad action, the energy of that action settles inside them and begins to destroy their life. The first thing it destroys is relationships with people, because honest people start treating them differently. It's not that they hate them, they simply avoid them. Honest people don't want to interact with someone like that, but dishonest people stick to them. Why? Because the energy they radiate attracts the same kind. That is why dishonest actions are dangerous. If you committed one, you must repent. Repentance has 3 stages. The first stage, you must tell yourself, I was wrong. This is the first stage of repentance. Most people stop here. The second stage, you must make every effort not to repeat this action and give yourself a promise that you will never do it again. Or more precisely, make a vow that you will not act like this again. This is the second stage. First, repent, I was wrong. Then give yourself your word that you will never act this way again and follow through on it. This is the third stage. You must try with all your strength not to act this way again. That is the third stage. And at some moment, it releases you. You no longer want to act this way. This means the karma has been worked through. You see, for example, a woman cheated on her husband once, and she wants to do it again. First, she must repent. Second, she must promise herself, I will never do this again. Then time passes. A year, maybe 2. And she suddenly feels the desire is gone. It disappeared. This means the karma has been worked out. You see, because the action creates a desire, it begins to burn in the heart. A person wants to repeat it again and again, and they can't do anything about it. Charity. What is charity? There were 3 steps, I don't remember.
3 steps from the edge.
The first, I already said. Look, the first step is that a person repents for what they did. The second step, they tell themselves, I will never do this again. And the third step, they don't do it. They simply don't do it. They understand. They endure. This is the third step. Most people stop at the first or second stage. They repent, then say, I'll never do it again. And after some time, they do. You see, you need to take 3 steps in your life in this direction. I thought I had become complete idiot. I forgot what I was talking about. Turns out, no, I still have a bit of a brain left. A tiny bit. Charity. Why is it needed? We must understand that in this world the energy of happiness cannot stagnate. You see, we always pull everything toward ourselves. From early childhood we have a strong grabbing reflex. We grab and hold. When a person lives alone, they grab for themselves. When they live with a family, they grab for the family. You see, but a grabbing reflex is always just a grabbing reflex. There is personal egoism, there is family egoism. But egoism always means one thing. It means that happiness begins to sour. Let me explain the system. The energy of happiness has the nature of circulation. It cannot remain still. Happiness that stops flowing becomes stagnant and turns into suffering. That is why we repeat, I wish everyone happiness. Not I wish myself happiness, but everyone. Why? Because when I wish everyone happiness, the oversoul, that is, the force that gives happiness, when I say, I wish everyone happiness, I'm asking the supersoul, let happiness flow from me to others. And the supersoul says, all right, no problem. Because the supersoul loves doing this, joyfully gives happiness to everyone. And as soon as it gives happiness outward, new happiness immediately enters the person's psyche through the inner energy center. This is a law. A person gives happiness, new happiness enters. And the more happiness flows through a person, the more happiness they have in life. You see? For example, a person gives a piece of bread to an elderly woman. A new energy appears inside them. A new energy that attracts happiness. For example, in one store, customers keep coming, and in another store, nobody. The owner watches, everyone goes there, and no one comes to him. He says, hey, come here, here. But people keep walking past, they don't turn in. 2 identical stores next to each other. Everyone buys in one, no one buys in the other. What's the reason? What attracts people to one store and not the other? People try to solve this externally. They start advertising, making everything shiny and beautiful, but still no one comes. And they don't know what to do. What should they do? Take some bread and start giving it away near the store to the birds. If an elderly woman passes by, give her something, help her. Start giving. When a person begins to give, the store's energy changes. An atmosphere forms that begins to attract people. People start coming in. And because your inner energy is good, they enter your store and ask, "Do you have this dress?" And you say yes, without drooling over the sale. You see? I once talked about this with a friend. We were walking in San Francisco. He said, "Show me how this works. Give me an example." I said, "All right, let's look." We enter one clothing store. A salesgirl runs up to me. "Good morning." I say, "Good morning." She says, "May I help you?" I say, "No." And everything inside me just dropped down. Why? Because she had drool, you see. She really wanted me to buy something. She wanted it too much. Then we go into the second store next door. I ask him, "Did you get it?" He says, "Got it." We went to the next store. We walk in. They smile. We say, "Hello." They say, "Hello." "Do you need anything?" We say, "We'll look around ourselves for now." They say, "Oh, okay, no problem." Okay? We walk around. The atmosphere is pleasant, no pressure. They are caring but not intrusive. If you need to ask something, they answer and immediately step back. They don't hover over you. If you want to buy, you buy. If you don't, they don't force you. Then we asked. The person explained everything calmly. "This is quality footwear. This is not good quality," and so on. I bought a pair of shoes. I've been wearing them for 3 years already. You see, the system works. It really works. If there is no greed sitting inside the salesperson, people will come. But if the salesperson drools, he desperately wants to sell. This is a force, you see. Where does it come from? Sometimes you simply treat the customer peacefully and suddenly you truly want them to be comfortable in your store. Where does this come from? This force has its own law. The more you give in your life, the more charity you do, the less greediness you have inside, you see. The more it withers away. You see, because more happiness energy begins to flow through you and you become self-sufficient. When a girl wants to get married, she looks at men with that anxious, hungry look, as if her inner drool is flowing. When will someone finally notice me? When will someone marry me? And then some guy approaches her and says, "What's your name?" And she giggles, He. "My name is Marina." And he thinks, is she stupid or what? And he walks away. Because that he energy, men don't like it. There is no self-sufficiency, no inner dignity. You cannot get married in that state. But if a girl starts behaving in a feminine way, treating everyone with kindness, loving everyone, she begins to feel that she can live with a husband or without a husband and still remain a woman. She simply shares her love. She functions as a woman even without being married. She starts taking care of others. There's an elderly woman in her building. She brings her food. The lady hugs her. "Thank you, my darling." She says, "I'll bring you more. I'll bring you some more tomorrow." She begins behaving like a real woman. Her heart overflows with love. She cares about everyone. And when she's in this state, men immediately sense it. Love flows through this person. She is a good woman. Someone approaches. "What's your name?" She answers quietly, "Marina." He thinks, wow, what a woman, so unattainable. Then he starts showering her with compliments. And she thinks, let him do it, that's fine. She waits for him to show real feelings. She doesn't jump at him right away. No, she waits, observes, studies him. And he tries this way and that way, until finally his psyche cracks completely. He comes up to her and says, I want to be with you forever. I want to marry you. I'm ready to do everything for you. I want to serve you my whole life. And she answers, all right, I'll think about it. And she walks away. This is how a good family is created. Why? Because she brings him to the right condition. He must get ready. He must become ripe. You see, the man must become appealing. And this is how a good family begins. But this becomes possible only when the woman is self-sufficient. Self-sufficiency means absence of greed. She gives love, she functions as a woman even without a man, and she becomes strong inside. She is no longer dependent on whether someone looks at her or not. She is wonderful by herself, with or without a man. She becomes a strong person, and therefore it becomes very easy for her to get married. Why? Because she functions as a woman even without a husband. This is the law. If a woman tries to get married in another way, ignoring this law, she will not succeed. It's impossible. Why? Because she doesn't understand the laws. So charity is an enormous force. Without charity, a person cannot live. They become unhappy. A person must constantly give. They must mentally wish everyone happiness, think kindly of others, care about them. The worse a person's fate is, the heavier their energy becomes, the angrier they get, the harder life becomes for them. And people turn away from such a person. But someone who lives by this inner law, they help such a person even if their fate is difficult. And God loves such a person. He takes care of them. He thinks, what a good person you are, that here is a person, everyone has turned away from him. Everyone is angry at him because he behaves incorrectly, but you treat him kindly. You give him a chance to change. This is the law we must follow. Charity, how to give properly, is an entire science. Because you can give charity in a way that harms someone. For example, giving money to a drug addict for drugs. This is not charity that brings happiness. Maybe your heart becomes a little cleaner from it, but because you create problems for that person with your charity, such charity is not considered right. It also harms your life. So one must learn how and what to give. For example, the best thing to give someone is food, because what can they do with it? Either they eat it or give it to animals. They can't resell it. We should not give packaged items. Don't give a loaf of bread in wrapping so he can trade it for vodka. Give him a piece of bread already cut. If you want to eat, no problem. Or give clothing. What does a homeless person need? He needs clothing, shelter, and food. Nothing else. What else does a homeless person need? Sometimes you give someone bread and they say, I don't want bread, I want salted fish. I'm missing salted fish. I say, why exactly are you missing salted fish? And they say, well, I think you know why. Everything is clear. I say, then you're not hungry. If you were hungry, you wouldn't be thinking about vodka. You'd be thinking about a piece of bread. You can tell a person this directly. How are things with us in general? People reach complete absurdity in this area. In Moscow, this happens often. Several alcoholics stand in the underpass and shout, donate to Noble Alcoholics for alcohol. And people give them money, can you imagine? Donate to Noble Alcoholics for alcohol. That's how far it has gone. So we must understand who to give charity to and who not to. It's best to donate near a temple. Even if a person spends this money on alcohol, they still understand that it came from God. If they are standing near the temple, it means they depend on God in some way. So what does charity do? Charity is a force that returns good destiny to a person. For example, someone feels they don't have enough prosperity in life. They must start giving, because by giving a little, we receive a lot. For example, you have something of great value you want. Like buying an apartment. That is of great value for you. But for a homeless person, what is of great value? Food. They simply want to eat. And when you give them food, God gives you something that you deeply value. Is food valuable for you in your life situation? No, you always have it. But an apartment that is valuable for you, you give a poor person food and God gives you an apartment. You see, it might not happen immediately, but this is exactly how it works. This is the law. Because life provides us with a certain limited amount of blessings. It is limited by nature. We cannot receive unlimited blessings in our lifetime. But there is another law. If a person gives away some of their blessings, they receive more in return. Not the same amount, but more. You see? Because spiritual energy has a limitless nature. For example, if I smile at you, how many of you smile back at me? Look how many of you there are, and I'm just one. Can you imagine the value of my one smile? I give one smile, and I get so many smiles back. Great. In the same way, a person who gives charity receives more in return. This is how spiritual energy works. It allows a person to have more. This is how life is built. For example, sometimes a woman cannot conceive a child, she cannot get pregnant. Impossible. Why? God didn't give her body that power. She is infertile. Does this happen in life? It happens. What should she do? The law of charity says that even without having this power, if she behaves correctly, she will receive a child, because she attracts the force that gives her the ability to conceive. Her hormonal functions begin to activate, and she becomes pregnant. So what should she do to conceive a child? What actions should she perform to conceive? Yes, caring for others. Why does a woman not receive a child? Because she has too little caring energy in her life. Why do her female hormonal functions not work? What is the energy of female hormones made of? It is made of kindness, love, and care. When a woman begins to love everyone, her reproductive system begins to function gradually. She starts taking care of everyone. When she begins to care about others, the chances of implantation increase, and she begins to behave kindly. Her reproductive organs relax, and the egg begins to move properly. Every female subtle energy is connected to some function of the female body. If a woman acts with love, her ovaries begin to work and her cycle normalizes. If she behaves with care, her uterus begins to function properly. If she behaves kindly, without anger, her fallopian tubes relax without spasms. You see, this is how the system works. For example, why does pregnancy morning sickness occur? Because morning sickness is a conflict with the fetus, an energy conflict. A woman is not caring by nature, so her uterus is tense. The child begins to protest. The child's energy rebels, and as a result, the woman feels ill, she vomits, because the child pulls her energy due to this conflict. But if a woman behaves humbly and caringly, caring means serving, entering a mood of service, then the child harmonizes with her. There is no morning sickness. You see, no miscarriage. Why does miscarriage happen? Because the woman is not caring. She closes off, focuses only on herself, thinks too much about herself. As a result, she cannot carry the child. Spasms begin in the uterus. She is too tense, too self-focused, not caring for others, but caring only for herself. You see, we cannot change these laws. They operate independently of us. If a woman begins to live in a feminine way, studies how to behave as a woman, she can become a mother. Recently, I spoke with one woman. She had a business together with her husband. And she said, and there are many such cases. She told me that she realized she was giving too much of her energy just to work. She needed to be a woman, so she quit working in her husband's company. They've been working together. She stopped working for him and began helping people more, doing things for others, living in a feminine way. And she got pregnant and gave birth to a child. You see, this is how the system works. A woman must learn to be a woman. Let's return to charity. The law of charity is a universal cosmic law, which means that when a person gives something, they receive something very valuable in return. Because what do we usually give? What we have. We give what we have. And what do we get in return? What we need. And this is the principle. Because if, let's say, someone asks you for food and you give them clothing instead, then you won't receive what you need in return. You will receive something you don't need. So we must try to give a person what they actually need. And then we also receive what we need. That's the principle. This is how the law of charity works. Now, the definition of kindness. Goodness means that kindness consists of two aspects. The first is sensitivity of the heart, the ability to feel another person's pain, the ability to withstand another person's suffering, the ability to remain optimistic and stable. Some people have a sensitive heart, but because they lack inner strength, they are not truly kind. They are weak-hearted people. For example, someone comes to take care of a sick person and says, "John, are you dying?" Right? "John, don't die. We'll suffer without you." He says, "Please leave me alone. You're tormenting me. Go away." John doesn't know what to do anymore. She's exhausting him. When she finally leaves, he says, "Thank God she's gone." He felt better. He tells the doctor, "I think I'm dying. Don't let her in here anymore. She'll definitely finish me off." He doesn't say, "Don't let this woman in. She's draining all my energy." Now another person comes, his friend, and says, "John, remember how we went fishing together? How great it was?" John says, tell me more." His friend starts telling him the story, hugging him. John thinks how good this feels. He says, "Please, let this person visit me again. I feel better with them. I'm recovering when they're near me." Do you see the difference between these two people? One person had enough strength inside not to fall apart. They feel the other person's pain, but they find inner strength, stay calm, feel that everything will be all right, and begin talking about something good. The other cannot find strength. They themselves start trembling with fear and suffering. Such a person is not needed near a sick person. This is called weakness of the heart. You see, a sick person needs someone strong, someone who can defeat the illness. This is the principle of kindness. The principle of kindness is that a person must learn to be strong. Because if you have overcome some suffering inside yourself, then you can overcome that suffering in another person. But kindness also requires sensitivity of the heart. A person with a cold heart cannot be kind. They cannot. What does kindness do? Let's say you show kindness to someone and help them in a difficult moment. What is the first thing you receive in return? When a person is in stress, what happens first? What happens? When a person is in stress, what happens first? Everyone turns away from them. No one needs them anymore. Their life becomes empty. Why? Because everyone wanted something from them. But the moment they can no longer give anything, people lose interest. This person also becomes uninterested. His wife, for example, sees that he can't give her anything and leaves him. That means that when a person is under stress, they lose everything in life. They get fired from work, their life falls apart, and they become completely alone. And then someone appears who begins to take care of them. And that person becomes their true friend. Because kindness means helping someone when they are suffering. Not when someone is doing well and you treat them nicely. Hey, how are you doing? Of course you'll be kind when everything is great for them. But try being kind when that person is falling apart. That's what kindness really is. And when you treat someone kindly at the moment when they are suffering, that person will never forget it. And on the other hand, if someone turned away from them in that moment, they will also never forget it. For example, a wife left when things were bad and came back when things got good again. But the husband will always remember what kind of wife he has. He will try to behave well with her, he will take care of her. But deep inside he will always know, you can't rely on this person, she abandoned me when I needed her most. Meanwhile, someone else took care of him in a difficult moment, and he will think for the rest of his life, this person is the best person I've ever met. This person protected me when I was falling apart, gave me a chance to live, helped me survive. Kindness. The first thing kindness gives is powerful protection in life. If you treat someone kindly, life itself will later force everyone else to treat you kindly too. For example, there is a woman in the building who always cared for everyone. She has no family, but she helps everyone around. She took care there. A neighbor needs someone to watch the child. They don't even need to ask. They just bring the child, and that woman feeds the child and cares for them with all her heart. She helps everyone in the building. And then one day she becomes paralyzed. Someone notices she hasn't come outside. Where did she go? They look, she is lying in bed and cannot move. She is paralyzed. All the neighbors will not be able not to help her. Their heart simply will not allow it. Because she gave so much love, they will be compelled to give back the same love. That's how this force works, the force that pulls one person toward another. Soon everyone in the building will run around asking, what happened? What happened? How is she? And everyone will start taking care of her. You see? No one will remain indifferent. And if someone does remain indifferent, it will be their problem, not hers. Those will be his problems, not that woman's. She will not be left without help. That is absolutely certain. Because this is how the law of kindness works. Kindness makes people turn toward you when you are suffering. You see? And when you are happy, kindness makes you turn toward others. Kindness creates warm, honest, lifelong relationships that never break. You see? They remain for decades. That's why a person must always show kindness. Kindness means this: when someone is suffering, they are not soft or sweet or pleasant. They smell bad, their life is falling apart, and everyone turns away. But you must come close and say, I will help you. You see? If the person is not evil by nature, maybe angry but not evil by nature, you must try to help them survive the situation in which they were left alone. Especially if the person is good and poverty has crushed them. That is the perfect moment to show kindness. Because it is not always possible to show kindness, life rarely gives such opportunities. But some moments are truly unique, and you must act, and you must show your kindness to those people who need it. When you help someone who truly needs it, you create a warm relationship that later protects your own life. You see? Let's say your child is in danger, needs a complicated surgery, and only a few surgeons can perform it well. Who can help you arrange it? Who can help? Can someone do it for money? No. Money buys scheduled surgeries. Who needs this surgery? But when someone needs very delicate, precise help, who can make that happen? Who can help? Only a kind person. Only someone with whom you have deep, kind, sincere ties. He will say, I'll find someone. And he starts looking. Because when the parent goes and asks for help, everyone immediately sees they are desperate, they are biased, they are asking for themselves. But when a friend goes and says, my friend is in serious trouble, please help him, a surgeon may say, all right, let me try, maybe I can do it. And this force of kindness starts acting. This friend goes around, talks to people, finds the right person, goes through connections, and the surgery becomes successful. Why? Because this is how the force of kindness works. When this force is present, relationships between people become completely different. If a person asks for themselves, it rarely works. But when another person asks on their behalf, it works. And for someone to speak on your behalf, you must have the right kind of relationship with them. These relationships are not cheap. The next thing that kindness gives is the ability to handle extremely difficult situations in life. For example, imagine you have your faith in God, but your loved one doesn't believe and even hates your faith. Imagine that is your fate. You believe and your loved one despises your faith. What can help preserve the family? What must be done? You need to show kindness. If a person begins treating their loved one kindly, despite their hatred toward their faith, that kindness softens the heart. Little by little, the hatred decreases, and maybe that person will never accept your faith, but at least they will stop interfering. They will allow you to believe in God the way you want. Why? Because you show kindness. On the other hand, if you respond with anger, if you get angry at your loved one, because they don't let you practice your faith, then the family will be destroyed. And in that case, there will be no chance to preserve it, because faith is the most powerful destructive factor in relationships. For example, one person has one faith, the other has a different one. That's it. Their relationship is already damaged by fate, but kindness can unite them and keep them together. In the same way, kindness can save a relationship with a kid who is running away from home. Kindness can save a relationship when you are being fired from your job because of some conflict or accusation. Human kindness saves everything. It is an enormous creative force. There is a phrase in the Vedas, evil will never conquer the one who does good. That includes sickness, poverty, and everything else. If a person does good, evil cannot overpower them because that is how the law works. It functions like a law. No one can violate it. This law always works. Now, the ability to forgive. For a malignant tumor to develop, time is required. And how does it develop? It develops very simply. There are certain destructive forces in this world that can influence us. And how do they act? They act through our fate, but we must support these destructive forces for them to take effect. For example, a person must develop a malignant tumor. For it to grow, it needs the energy of violence, the energy of hatred, the energy of anger. Let's say someone mistreated you. They did something nasty to you, and you start returning that nastiness. How do we usually return nastiness? With our thoughts. We begin thinking about what a terrible person they are. And a force begins to flow from us toward them, a force that harms their life. Through us, they start suffering. We become like gods who punish them. But the Vedas say a person should not play God or try to punish others. On the contrary, a person must free themselves from the destructive energy that wants to use them as a weapon. You need to free yourself from this energy. Why? Because when the energy of hatred passes through your mind and body, all destructive processes inside you start getting nourished. The destructive force inside your body awakens. If you already have a few cancerous cells and you begin thinking hateful thoughts about someone, what happens? Your tumor begins to grow, it increases, it becomes stronger, hatred feels good to it. You see, you get angry, think with hatred, and the tumor grows. And then it becomes very hard to remove. It begins destroying your life. That's why a person must learn to forgive at any cost. Forgive quickly, especially those who provoke strong negative emotions. For example, the neighbor curses at you every day through the wall. Let's say you once did something wrong. Your dog pooped at her door one time. The neighbor is already very negative by nature, and your dog pooped there once. But after that, she screams through the wall every day because the walls are thin. Every day you hear, "You idiot, do you hear me or not?" through the wall. And you listen, and every day you must forgive. One time the dog pooped at her door, and now you must forgive her every day for the rest of your life. That's the law. You must forgive as long as the person continues doing harm. And understand, they have their own karmic account, and there is a force in the universe that will punish them. We do not need to punish anyone ourselves. We must not become the gun that shoots at others. Let that gun find them somewhere else. That's their business. Our job is simply to forgive. Forgive, forgive, forgive every day. This means there is a test in your life. Why did this neighbor appear in your life? We are so happy when a good person appears in our life by fate. We are so happy. We say, "Oh, how wonderful that you came into my life." We think it's because we are a good person. I am such a good person, so a good person came into my life. But when a neighbor curses at us every day, why don't we think, "I must have done something wrong in life if such a neighbor came to me"? There is a reason. Why do we refuse to see that law? Because the ego doesn't allow it. We must say to ourselves, "I am guilty of something. That's why I have this neighbor. Thank God she reminds me that I need to work off my karma. I will forgive them and purify my life." So you try. They scream, "Hey idiot, can you hear me?" And you say quietly, "Please forgive me, neighbor. I don't want us to have bad relations. I wish you happiness. I wish you happiness." "Hey idiot, what are you mumbling there?" "I wish you happiness." And suddenly, silence. Everything settles. The process has begun. It works. What we do inside our apartment affects other people. I probably already told you the story of how I experimented with this. When I lived in Tolyatti, in a panel building, you could hear everything, but not so loudly that anyone would hear the spiritual music I played around the clock. And my neighbors used to fight constantly. As soon as they came home from work, they would start yelling at each other. So I decided to test it. I turned on spiritual music in my apartment. A few hours passed, maybe 10 hours. Suddenly, silence. Complete silence. One day of silence. Second day of silence. Third day, no yelling. Everything was calm. Silence. They are not fighting. I thought, a miracle, a miracle. And then I turned off the spiritual music. A few hours later, they started fighting again. I turned it back on. After a little while, quiet again. The system works, you see. We live like in a chicken coop. Do you know how a chicken coop works? An incubator? The cages are stacked one above another. One chicken poops. It falls on everyone below. That's exactly how we live. We live in a giant chicken coop, a big building. Energy spreads everywhere. One person watches a horror movie, and everyone around feels shaken. You see? That's why you must wish them happiness and play spiritual music at home, because sound is the strongest force that influences the space around a person. That's why at home you must always play spiritual music so that this energy of happiness spreads and the neighbors calm down. And you must constantly forgive them because resentment toward neighbors accumulates for years. When neighbors fight, it affects us too. A person begins to feel more and more aversion toward those who live nearby. This happens because the contact is constant. If someone lives incorrectly, you must forgive them. Therefore, there is a law that you must forgive your neighbors first, and you must also ask forgiveness from your neighbors. Just like brushing your teeth, you must ask for forgiveness and forgive them. These are the two things we must do. When a person forgives and asks forgiveness, they neutralize the destructive influence of their karma on themselves. Fate may want to hit you, destroy something in your life, right now, for example. But it cannot, because you forgive and you ask forgiveness. You become untouchable. Nothing can harm you. This is how the law works. Now, the next law is compassion. Compassion is different from kindness because kindness means caring for a person while satisfying their desires, what they want. That is kindness. And compassion means that you acquire such power that provides the ability to give a person not what they want, but what they need. That is compassion, a force that allows you to give a person what is truly necessary, even when they do not ask for it, because very often we want things that are not good for us, and a compassionate person can give someone exactly what their soul needs. For example, higher knowledge about how to live, how to be happy, can be given only through compassion. There is no other way to pass on real spiritual knowledge. If a person has no compassion, they cannot transmit the knowledge they possess. That is why compassion is the greatest creative force in this world. The Vedas say that on higher planets, living beings live extremely happy lives, and they live thousands, tens of thousands of times longer than we do. But despite this, sometimes sages from these higher planets descend to Earth and are born in the bodies of ordinary women. Why do they do this? They are driven by compassion because they deeply understand and feel how we live. They come here to give us knowledge about how to live. And then for centuries we remember them. They may be saints, spiritual teachers, or prophets. Higher living beings come into this world to make us happier. And through their influence, many people are saved. They are saved from suffering. And in order for them to carry out their mission, they must take on some form of asceticism practice on earth. And so, for example, they are born blind, or they have some other difficulties in life. For instance, take Saint Matrona of Moscow. An incredibly powerful soul, an incredibly powerful personality. Just imagine a person who lived, 50 years ago? Roughly that. She left this world not so long ago. And still today people come to her grave, and she continues to help them, truly help them. I myself felt this powerful help several times in my own life. She was blind, but she had inner vision. She could see destiny and would tell people what to do to avoid misfortune. And when you tell a person something like that, they usually want to do the opposite with all their strength. But because they believe in Saint Matrona, they follow her instructions, and misfortune does not touch them. You see, there exists knowledge about how to avoid disaster, and she possessed that knowledge, and she still possesses it. The most amazing thing is that her influence has not stopped. It very much continues in the lives of those who believe in her. You see? And every spiritual tradition has people like this. The only force that allows them to enter our psyche is this force of compassion. I recently gave lectures in Kazan. I went to the Cathedral of Our Lady of Kazan. You know, right? It is a famous icon. You stand before the icon, small images of Christ and the Mother of God, tiny images like this. A large icon covered with precious stones decorated all over. And the small images in the middle. And around the icon, this many thin gold chains all intertwined around it. Like this. What do people do? If someone is healed from a deadly illness through prayer before this icon, or if something miraculous happens in their life, they bring a thin gold chain and offer it to the icon. That's the tradition. A thin gold chain as a gift. And there are so many of them. Thousands, probably not less. There's no space left to hang them. They're already being placed next to the icon. You see, everything is covered in these gold chains. Why do you think that is? Because an immense force emanates from it. I looked at that icon. I was stunned. I felt such a powerful wave of compassion. Such help, my heart immediately became light, wide open, as if everything inside unfolded. I didn't even come with a request. I came simply to see, to understand how this force works. And I saw it is real, it works. But compassion does not work through every person. It works through some, and through others, it doesn't. You must find the person through whom the icon acts. You must find the saint, even if they no longer live on earth, through whom this force still moves, and your life will be saved. Because when life becomes unbearable, who can you turn to? Who can help? Can a psychologist help? Only a compassionate person can help. A psychologist without compassion cannot help. You sit there talking to them and they say, well, I see. I understand. What else? Yes, I understand you. I understand. Yes. Yes, he died. This one was killed. Well, what can you do? That's life. Your session time is over. You see, they helped you. Get rid of extra money. Apparently you had too much. You see, if there is no compassion in a person, no force of compassion flowing from them, they cannot help. There are no chances. Even if they studied all of psychology, the system simply does not work. The only thing that works is the force of compassion. It can transfer something directly into your heart. It brings peace into your mind. It restores your ability to think. Why does a person go to a psychologist? Because their mind is not functioning properly. Their thoughts are chaotic, everything is upside down. They don't know how to think, what to do. They are in panic. And panic cannot be removed by words alone. It requires compassion. When there is compassion, a person looks at another with compassion, and suddenly the mind calms down. A sense of ease appears inside, because the person needed this force, this inner help. Compassion transmits this energy of purity and strength into a person's heart. All right. Now the next character trait. Not all of us are capable of showing compassion. It is a very special character trait. It exists only in very strong, elevated people. We must seek out such people and ask them how to live, and they will help us. The next character trait is simplicity. We already talked about simplicity. Now I just want to explain what it gives a person. Simplicity gives a person the ability to build relationships. If someone needs relationships, simplicity gives them that opportunity. Once I watched an old film about a girl trying to get into a theater school. An old film, a comedy, about how she sang. Come back tomorrow. Yes. And what was the whole essence of the film? The girl won everyone over with her simplicity. She was incredibly simple. She sang everywhere someone asked her to sing. Students even tricked her. They set up a fake exam panel pretending to be the jury. She began singing for them with such joy. Then she went to another exam. And in the end, the real teacher arrived and she was accepted into the institute. So what's the main idea? A simple person naturally builds relationships. They are accessible, open. They give themselves the chance to form connections. If a person is simple by nature, all doors open for them. They can get anywhere. A simple person. Simplicity is a huge force that removes barriers between people. Because what creates barriers? Every one of us has some inner stiffness. We all try to look a certain way. Looking a certain way means wearing a protective mask. Yes, hello, what's your name? Everyone wears such a mask. But if a person carries simplicity in their heart, the moment they approach someone with this protective mask, the other person's mask immediately disappears. Why? Because simplicity means not defending yourself from anyone. It means believing in fairness, believing in love, believing in higher principles of this world, and therefore a simple person has no protective armor on their face. Simplicity is valued everywhere, in secular environments and non-secular ones. Everyone loves simple people. That is a guaranteed fact. Asceticism practice. Asceticism practice is another method of achieving goals, another way to reach something in life. Everyone in this world practices asceticism. To achieve any position in society, a person must practice some form of asceticism. They must study at a university. This is an asceticism practice. They must serve someone, help someone, care for someone, work somewhere. These are all asceticism practices, you see. But very few understand that different asceticism practices produce different results. For example, if a person practices the asceticism of following a daily routine, waking up early, going to bed on time, eating properly, doing everything properly, then they activate the catalyst of their life. What does catalyst mean? It means that positive energy in their destiny increases dramatically and negative energy dissolves quickly. For example, if something bad is about to happen in life, the first sign is that the person wakes up late that morning. If something bad is coming, the first thing they do is eat something they shouldn't. If something bad is approaching, they usually go to bed too late. When a person's mind begins to drift in the wrong direction, the first thing they do is violate the natural rhythm of life. The natural rhythm of life is the daily routine. And the main asceticism practice for a human being, the first one, when someone begins working on themselves, is learning to wake up early. Because when a person wakes up early, the energies of the sun and the moon influence them equally, meaning both the right and left hemispheres of the brain are balanced. As a result, calmness comes to the mind. This energy of calmness exists in the atmosphere from 4 in the morning until 6 in the morning. If a person wakes up at another time, for example at 6:30, a psychological imbalance already begins. This creates a restless mind. If a person wakes up early before 6 a.m., their psyche is peaceful. You know? And they can feel happiness inside themselves. It's very hard to understand this, but you can feel it. Why are people who go fishing, fishermen, always so optimistic? Because they wake up early. Sometimes you get up early yourself, go out to read your prayers, and you see 3 fishermen walking by. Step, 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 so happy on their way to fishing. Why are they so happy? Is it because they kill fish? No, because they wake up early. There's a saying, God gives to those who rise early. You see? And even the songs people wrote, they're filled with the energy of early morning. Wake up early, wake up early, wake up early. Just as the morning begins to play at your gate. It's an optimistic song. It carries the energy of morning optimism. Another song. The morning greets us with its cool breeze. Also optimistic. This is how morning works. This is how morning energy works. Why? Because that's how this world is created. We can't do anything about it. Birds sing in the morning. The atmosphere becomes very pure. People who wake up early in the morning behave completely differently. For example, when I wake up early and pray, I sometimes go out into the streets in the center of Moscow. Imagine what kind of street that is, the very center. I live in central Moscow, and there are always people there talking, sweeping the streets. Well, such kind of people. And everyone smiles at that time. And rats run around the streets at that hour. Completely happy rats, jumping over each other. The atmosphere is very friendly. Because rats will never run outside when there is danger. They stay in their holes. But when the atmosphere is friendly and peaceful, everything and everyone comes out. Everything feels good, you see. When I was in San Francisco, deer would run out in the morning, approaching people. In Moscow, we have rats. Well, different cities have different animals. But morning is morning everywhere. A person who doesn't wake up in the morning says, "Doctor, something's wrong with me." What time do you get up? 10. Why so late? I don't know. I can't wake up earlier. I want to get up earlier, but I can't. Something stops me. What time do you go to bed? At 3 in the morning. Why so late? Well, I like doing things at night. And why not do them in the morning? I don't know. I just don't go to bed earlier. Then they look at the doctor and say, "So what? What's the problem?" The thing is that brain doesn't work anymore. You see, that means that a person who lives like that is living against life, against the daily rhythm. They are also performing an asceticism practice, but it is the kind that destroys their life. For example, one guy came to the hospital with a stomach ulcer. I saw it myself. They asked him, "Do you have an ulcer?" "Well, my buddy and I made a bet over who could eat more dumplings. I ate more." His ulcer got worse. That too is an asceticism practice, eating more dumplings than anyone else. This is asceticism practice in degradation. Or bungee jumping, who jumps higher off a bridge on a rope, that's also an asceticism practice. But an asceticism practice in degradation. There is asceticism practice in passion. A person thinks the more they work, the more money they will earn. Asceticism practice in passion. Where does it lead? To the gradual destruction of life. Look, a person has a certain amount of life blessings. They have the blessing of happy time with their family and raising their children. They have health. That's also a blessing. They have the ability to take a vacation somewhere. Another form of happiness they receive simply for being born human. They earned this by their past actions. Certain relationships with friends and so on. A person decides they need more money. That means they decide they have to work more. And as a result, they spend less time with their family. There's no time left to raise their children. Health starts to go down. And there's no time for vacations. You see? In the end, what did they exchange for money? Their entire life. They have no time to live, you understand? That's it. No time to live. Why? Because they wanted more in life. But what exactly is that more? If you can't build a loving relationship with your spouse, can't raise your children, have no health, and can't even take a simple break, there is no happiness at all. You don't even have the opportunity to eat on time. Where is happiness then? What is this more you're trying to get from such work? More of what? And people don't understand this. They work 2 or even 3 jobs to have more. My child needs to get a good education, needs to go to a good school. You must understand, education is not where they charge the highest tuition. That's just fancy packaging, not real education. Real education is where a child is treated with care. The more money you pay a teacher, the more cynical their relationship with the child becomes. Some of the best schools hardly charge anything, but the teachers are very warm-hearted. Let the diploma be less prestigious. At least the child will grow into the right kind of person. And when a person is truly valuable, no one asks for their diploma. For example, I have a medical degree, but no one ever asks to see it. Wherever I go to give lectures or work, no one says, "Show us your medical diploma." No one asks. I'm a doctor. No one asks about a medical diploma to verify that I am a doctor. Why? Because it's obvious. It's written on my face that I'm a doctor. There is no need to check the paper. If a person receives a good, proper education, when a person receives proper education, you can see they are educated. You don't need an expensive diploma. You don't need Cambridge. All right, Cambridge, and then what? They come to work and can't do anything properly. Maybe they even know theory, but they can't communicate, can't behave professionally, can't speak properly with their manager. What good is Cambridge then? It won't help, you see. This idea that you must pay a lot of money for a child's education, it's a complete illusion. Take your child to a monastery for a week and live with them there. That will be education, real education. They will meet pure people, dignified people. They will learn to pray with them. That is the kind of education that stays for life. For example, if later they have issues with their boss, they start praying, and the boss suddenly can't treat them badly anymore. That's education. Real education gives a person the ability to understand the laws of life and to act according to these laws. That's education. Now a few announcements. I'm very grateful to the Raduga Center for gathering all of you here. I truly feel great happiness from everything happening in this place. Therefore, I'm very grateful. It's an amazing center. Let me tell you how it opened. Elaine, who organizes all this here, came to me in Moscow to get my guidance about how to start such a center. I gave her instructions. I scolded her for about 20 minutes. I said, "You're crazy. Do you understand the responsibility you're taking on? Gather people, all of this?" And she just sat there. "Yes, I will try my best." She was so humble that after she left, I thought something will probably work out for her. I even felt embarrassed for scolding her so much. And here she is. She created this amazing project. So many people now can come here and unite, people from different spiritual and religious backgrounds. And a wonderful, elevated, pure, even holy person, Vadim Tuniv, will give you a seminar on how to burn karma. It will take place on December 17th, 2008 at 6:30 p.m. If you simply come once to see this person, you will not remain indifferent. That is guaranteed. Also on February 12th and 14th, there will be a seminar taught by Ruzov, a man who looks very serious on the outside but is actually warm, kind, and simple at heart. I have a seminar called The 26 Qualities of Character, or more precisely, Developing Positive Traits. It's 26 lectures, each dedicated to one quality of character. What I wanted to convey to you in this seminar is that every quality gives a person a specific type of inner strength. For example, asceticism practice gives a person the ability to overcome obstacles that seem impossible to overcome. Let's say someone is diagnosed with cancer, considered an incurable disease, an unbeatable obstacle. But if a person gathers inner strength, they can stop the progress of the disease. How? Through asceticism practice. There are different kinds of asceticism practices. What is asceticism practice? Voluntarily giving up comfort. For example, practicing yoga, doing static postures in hatha yoga. That's asceticism practice. Fasting is an asceticism practice. Cold showers, ice baths, winter swimming, these are asceticism practices. And so on. Different asceticism practices give a person different levels of inner power. The more ascetic the person, the stronger they become. Stronger means more capable of overcoming difficulties in their life. That is where strength comes from. But we must understand, men and women have different types of asceticism practice. For example, a woman should not practice asceticism by sleeping on a hard floor. That is not a feminine asceticism practice, and it does not increase feminine strength. Female asceticism practice includes things like helping elderly women, feeding animals, bringing people together. Women's asceticism practice lies in the realm of relationships. A woman should not torture or punish her body. It is very important for women to eat on time. For example, a woman must eat something sweet in the morning. It boosts female hormones. But she should not eat sweets in the evening, otherwise she will get bloated. So, because the moon governs evening metabolism. If a woman eats sweets, in the evening, boom, she becomes slightly bigger. She ate more sweets, boom, she got even bigger. Ate more sweets and she got even bigger. Ate more sweets, got even bigger. You see, and going back to normal is very difficult later. Therefore, sweet foods in the morning as much as she likes and none in the evening. A woman must eat properly. This is an asceticism practice. Following a daily routine doesn't mean eating nothing, it means eating right. Next, a woman must learn to cover her body. She should express beauty in a way that doesn't overly expose her body. When too much of the female body is shown, a woman loses her beauty. Her beauty is consumed by the greedy glances of men. The energy is limited. It runs out, you see. Like everything else in this world. Just as I mentioned yesterday with the example of the old woman and urine, everything runs out eventually. Beauty can run out too. If men consume a woman's beauty with their eyes, her energy diminishes and she feels uncomfortable. She instinctively covers herself. Why? Because people are taking her energy. Strangers use that energy. To prevent this, a woman should dress in a way that keeps her beauty protected. When the body is not visible, no one can take that energy. No one. When a woman covers her body, she becomes mysterious. Something is there, but it's impossible to fully understand what. No one knows from which side to approach her. That is the correct approach. This is the asceticism practice of a woman, to highlight her beauty, but not expose it. Furthermore, a woman must learn to be a woman. She must resolve things kindly. She must forgive, she must cultivate compassion within herself, she must act with love, and so on. These are feminine qualities. Strictness is not a feminine quality. The ability to punish is not a feminine quality. Violence is not a feminine quality. Cruelty and harshness are not feminine qualities. Cruelty is a negative trait in general. A woman must remain a woman. Men have their own types of asceticism practice, the ability to endure difficulties, to punish fairly, to sleep on a hard surface, to pour ice-cold water over themselves, to always remain energetic, to perform physical labor. This is male asceticism practice. Active spiritual practice is also a male asceticism practice. Women also do spiritual practice, but for women it takes a different form. A woman should attend devotional singing, where love flows, group chanting in temples, for example. She should help organize spiritual programs where people exchange loving energy. She should take part in activities where love is present, because there is prayer, deep, silent, concentrated prayer, and that type is more masculine. And then there are devotional songs, dancing for God and so on, which is a feminine way of serving God. A woman must learn. Women need prayers too, but a woman must learn to love God in a feminine way. I don't think we'll have time today to cover all the qualities of character, but I want to repeat something very important. A person who does not cultivate good qualities within themselves will not be able to discover their true purpose. Because discovering one's purpose happens only within the field of the energy of happiness. Sometimes people live within the energy of suffering, which means they lack good qualities of character. Others live within the energy of happiness, which means they have enough good qualities. And it is precisely in that atmosphere of happiness that a person can understand, feel, and fulfill their true purpose. If someone lives in a zone of suffering, they will never understand their purpose, because their purpose simply does not exist there. Purpose exists only where happiness exists. That is why a person must live correctly. They must learn to behave properly, develop good qualities, and follow the principles of right living. When they do, clarity appears: where to work, how to work, what career path to follow. Let me give a simple example. A young woman does not understand that she is a woman, that her nature is to cultivate love in relationships first. She comes to a workplace where she should be. This is her destiny, this is exactly where she belongs. But because she builds dry, formal relationships with people, because she focuses on career and on proper behavior, because she thinks too much about money, her psyche dries up and she can no longer work at that job. She becomes exhausted and leaves and loses her work, her life purpose. Why did she lose it? Because she did not develop the most important thing. She did not want to be a woman, did not behave like a woman, and lost her job. Another example: a young man comes to work, and this is his purpose too. He must work there. Let's say he is a manager by nature and is meant to lead people. But because he is too ambitious and refuses to listen to his senior, he loses the job. Why? Because he lacked an essential quality: obedience. He could not follow authority, and as a result, he lost his job. Who is to blame? He could not live within the atmosphere of happiness. And to live in that atmosphere, a person must match that environment. They need the qualities that naturally exist within it. If a woman wants to be happy, she must speak with her husband not from a position of power, but from warmth, kindness, modesty, and patience. She must show him that she is weaker. You see? If she does that, the man becomes pleased. And together they enter the atmosphere of happiness. Their relationship becomes happy. You see? Even if the man behaves harshly, she should still speak gently and calmly. Over time, he will change. You see? That's how these laws work. A woman nourishes a man's strength. She makes him strong through her own behavior. Oh, what a note. I even got scared. Practically a whole encyclopedia. Oh, good Lord. Do you give consultations in Riga? If so, how can someone sign up? A manager, at the very least. How much do they cost? 0. Is the payment hourly or per consultation? To get one, you must win the lottery. In Moscow, they are free as well. You can sign up in advance if you happen to be in the city and come talk. Are there any other ways to work on oneself besides prayer and asceticism practice? If I listed 10 methods of self-improvement for you, you would immediately ask, and are there any others besides those 10? If I told you, for example, that there is a wonderful method of self-improvement like this: you eat, you listen to the radio, and your character improves. You would accept it instantly and say, "Great method." And then you would ask, are there any more like that? Where you just eat, listen to the radio, and your character gets better? All right, let me give you one method of self-transformation. You will all like it, really like it. You won't have any further questions after this. Here it is. Clean your entire kitchen so that there is no dirt. Then, remove all meat from it. No meat in the kitchen, and no fish either. Wash all dishes with milk so that they are free from the energy of violence. Then begin cooking vegetarian food. Cook while praying to God. And after you finish cooking, place an icon of a saint or an image of God from your tradition before the food. Place all the dishes in front of this image and offer them to God. First, detach the food from yourself inwardly and offer it to God. After you do this, simply eat. And just by eating this food, your consciousness will be purified of all sins. The Vedas say, when a person eats sanctified food, their consciousness becomes completely purified and they become a very elevated soul. This is a great secret, but this is how it works. You see, here is your most pleasant method of purification. You simply eat, and your consciousness becomes clean. Now, here is a very specific question. I'll probably answer one more question. What type of health practices are suitable for a person of the fire constitution? Are yoga or bodybuilding appropriate? Yoga is suitable for everyone. It is absolutely universal. It's just that there are different exercises for different constitutions, but overall, yoga is an excellent practice. Exercise routine, it's hard to find anything better. I'm sorry, there is also Qigong. Qigong is also a very good system. They differ only slightly from each other. Yoga removes deep psychological fatigue, especially when a person is exhausted from work and lives under tension. So yoga is excellent for that. Qigong establishes a connection with nature. When a person practices Qigong, they become purified simply by tuning into nature, to the forest, water, wind. Therefore, both are good. They just give different results. But all the other forms of gymnastics do not work the same way. Those exercises simply give a bit of tone, but they do not heal. And we already have too much tone in our lives. That's why such exercises can even take life energy away from a person. They can even cause harm. Although, of course, they are also needed. A person still needs to at least bend forward a few times or go for a light run. At least once a day, they should do some dynamic movement to maintain physical form. Because people with a sedentary lifestyle quickly deteriorate and they need at least some dynamic exercise or simple walking. Unfortunately, I can't answer all your questions today. There are simply too many of them. The core of one's purpose that you're talking about, the pure, unmixed one, is it indicated in the astrological chart? Or is what you're describing unrelated to natal chart? And how should we understand different types of purpose? If one's purpose differs by sun, moon, and other chart factors? A very good question. There are different types of astrology, of course. There is Jyotish, Vedic astrology. In principle, one's purpose, one's inner core, is indicated there. Who a person was, who they are meant to be by nature. The problem is that an astrologer is not always able to determine this correctly. It's a very complex task. Therefore, according to the knowledge I received from my teachers, in our time the most reliable way to understand one's purpose is to determine it through one's occupation. Where you naturally feel drawn, where your work flows well, where you receive both satisfaction and money, that is your purpose. So it's better not to determine purpose strictly through the chart, but rather by looking at what you are inclined toward in real life. Because purpose reveals itself to a person gradually, one begins to feel it. For example, someone says, I've been a bookkeeper, I've worked in sales, I've been a sales manager. It's all the same purpose, just different variations of the same activity. Purpose is a category, a field of activity. Within that field, you find your specific role. Someone asks, should I become a doctor or a lawyer? You've already chosen the category. It's the same purpose. Being a doctor and a lawyer is the same thing. Just find where within it you fit. For example, it's better for you to be a doctor. Another asks, what kind of doctor should I be? Pediatrician, obstetrician, something else. That you must feel yourself. Just try it and feel it. These layers of purpose are felt intuitively. A person easily understands where they belong once they try a few things. Try working with your hands for a few days. Try a bit of business. Try supervising people. Try teaching. Just a few days is enough to understand where you can truly express yourself. This is revealed best in practice. Of course, an astrologer can give some advice, but be careful. It is not always a 100% guarantee. Not always. Astrology is a very complex science, and to understand it deeply, one must be practically a holy person. Only then the chart opens itself clearly. How should I wake up and when to have time for prayer? If my work forces me to go to bed late, after midnight, for example, twice a week. Good question. If you come home from work very late and you sleep, say, until 6 a.m., 4 hours, then at 6 a.m. get up, take a shower, read a prayer, do some exercises. Stay active until around noon. Around 11 a.m. you can eat something, and when it gets close to 12, go to sleep. When the sun begins to descend, not when it's already late, but when it just begins to go down, that time is very good for rest. You can sleep for 2 hours and nothing bad will happen. Then you get up again and stay awake until 10 p.m. and go to bed again, and your rhythm will not collapse. But if you sleep in the morning after 6 a.m., from 6 to 10, this is the most destructive sleep. If a person sleeps at that time, their life starts to fall apart. Their physiology, their mind, their fate. So it's better to get up. Even if you didn't sleep at night, still wake up in the morning and sleep later when the sun has passed the midpoint. How? Of course, if fate is completely constrained and circumstances allow little space, do what you can. You still must sleep, 6 hours per day at minimum. If a person doesn't sleep, they destroy their life. If it's not possible, ideally, do the best you can. A voice says, don't go there, a brick will fall on your head. And the boss says, go there. How should one act? Leave the job. If you clearly see that your boss is pushing you towards something terrible, that is a sign that you must leave this job. For example, the boss says, go deliver a bribe to so-and-so. That becomes your job, to deliver the bribe. You say, there will be a trap waiting for me, I'll end up in prison. He says, it's fine, everything will be okay. Whether you like it or not, you'll have to leave, my dear. You see, your life is more important. If the boss says foolish things that could ruin your life, if you could end up in prison because of it, then God Himself is telling you to run from this job. That's already a different question. My dear, no. If you don't feel like doing something, but your boss says it must be done, then it must be done. Because honestly, what woman wants to work at work? Women want to flirt with their eyes a little, smile. She doesn't want to work. Work is rarely something a woman enjoys. She comes to work almost as if it's entertainment. Everything should be pleasant there. She likes chatting with everyone, drinking tea, talking with the girls, discussing things. What kind of work is there for a woman? But if money is needed, then you must listen to your boss. You see? There's no way around it. So here there's no dilemma. If you've taken a job, you have to endure certain things. Yesterday you mentioned that a woman should endure if her husband wants a lot of sex. A woman disagrees with this. What should she do if she has no desire, if she doesn't feel any need for it, while her husband's need is very strong? The atmosphere in the family is heating up. The husband gets angry and becomes aggressive. What does this mean? It means have a child. Why are you even asking me this? Since you're asking such questions, I'll answer them all now. You see, when you get married, you also have your needs. A woman's sexuality expresses itself differently. Her sex is that her husband cares for her, that he loves her, kisses her, brings her flowers, creates comfort, provides, protects. This is female sexuality. It manifests itself in a feminine way. Women never complain about their sexuality. Theirs is good sex. But male sexuality? I don't like that one. No, I won't give him that. If you don't want him pursuing you constantly, then have a child. Therefore, that's it. There is no other option. Or adopt one. The effect will be the same. Just get yourself a child, adopt one from an orphanage. A child brings harmony. Everything settles down, and you'll be happy. How to forgive a husband for repeated infidelity? It's so painful. A very good question. You must forgive. There is no other way. I'll tell you what happens if you don't forgive. If you don't forgive and leave him, the family will collapse, and you will make yourself, your children, and everyone involved deeply unhappy. Or, if you don't forgive but stay with him, then for your refusal to forgive, you will be forced, by the law of karma, to cheat on him yourself multiple times. That's the law. That's how the law of justice works. A person is not God. We cannot deny forgiveness to another soul. Why? Because we do not know their inner reasons. We don't have the understanding. Here is an example. When hard fate falls on a person, often they simply have no strength to remain pure. It's very difficult not to sin in such a moment. A woman who withholds love from her husband, doesn't give him love, pushes him toward infidelity. For a man, it is extremely hard to stay faithful without receiving love. A woman is self-sufficient in this regard. She has love inside her. She can exchange emotional love with friends, children, family. You see, with anyone, but a man cannot. He exchanges love only with his wife. His only source of emotional nourishment is his wife. You see, he cannot get it elsewhere. He has limited capacity for it, so you cannot judge him harshly if he behaves that way. If he is drawn to cheat, ask yourself if you are fulfilling your own duties toward him. Do you give him love? That's where the problem lies. The same applies to a wife's infidelity. Why does a woman cheat? Because she seeks care and protection. If she lives like Cinderella, scolded, pressured, used, and receives no tenderness or security, of course she will look elsewhere. Can you blame her for that? The one who failed to give her care is responsible. That's where the real issue is. If your spouse is unfaithful, think about why. What kind of life have you created for them? How do you treat your duties? That's what you need to think about. And even if you cannot figure out why, you must forgive anyway. Because if you refuse, you take too much upon yourself, and then you will be put into the same situation. This means that they will have to step into the same mess themselves. This law works 100% of the time. Those who judge others harshly always end up taking the same exam in their own life. And most fail it. They judge someone, and then they themselves do the same thing. Therefore, don't judge anyone. Do you use a water filter at home? I do. Maybe we should make a water filter commercial? Or do you bless every meal with a prayer? I don't understand this, or I use a water filter and I bless every meal with a prayer. I don't see why it should be either or. How much does childhood experience affect us? How can we change the parts of it that prevent us from becoming better? Marina Targakova will speak about this. Childhood experience affects us strongly, but even more powerful is the experience of our past lives. It is exactly this past life experience that shows itself in childhood. Why? Because childhood is woven from our karma. Everything that happens in childhood, we cannot influence it in any way, we cannot change it, because it is beyond our freedom of choice. A child has no free will. They are placed into very strict conditions by fate. Only after puberty does a person begin to gain some freedom in how they act and live. And even then, very little. A man gains real freedom of choice around age 25. A woman around 18. And only by about 30 does a person acquire the inner strength to truly fight their fate. Well, by 25, 30 years old. So yes, many of us have painful childhood experiences, and these are naturally overcome through sincere work on oneself once the time comes. There is nothing fatal in childhood experience. We simply need to work with those wrong impressions that remain inside us. What to do if you and your partner are harmonious on all lower centers but not on the upper ones? One is interested in spiritual matters and the other is not, but does not resist. That's wonderful. No resistance is already a great blessing. Understand that a loved one will not always be interested in spirituality. Spirituality awakens only in a certain phase of life. And the person who wrote this note, you also weren't always interested in spiritual life. Something clicked inside you, the right time came, and spiritual interest awakened. Your partner simply hasn't reached this moment yet. You see, respect their path. Let them grow into it on their own. If you start pressuring them, come to the lecture, come, nothing good will come of it. You're poisoning their life. You're interfering with something that is meant to happen naturally. For example, if you want your child to poop in their pants, what should you do? What do you need to do to make a child poop in their pants? What is the fastest way? Tell them every day, let's go poop, let's go poop, let's go poop. Child will get so anxious about being forced to poop that will end up pooping in their pants. It's 100% true. This is how it works. The same with adults. If you push your partner to do something, they will never do it. Simply because you've destroyed their desire. That's it. So don't touch them. Let them live peacefully. Do not pressure them, neither with good things nor with bad things. Why can't some women conceive a child? Because it's not meant to be. This is one of the most severe punishments in life. Inability to have children. A woman is born in a female body, not only to have children, but sometimes to suffer from not having them. Sometimes a person is born in a female body to suffer without children. But if a woman understands this pain and decides to rise above it, she must oppose the punishment. She must practice asceticism, love people, be kind, learn to be gentle, caring, feminine. You see? And when she behaves this way, her ability to conceive grows every day. And it seems to her that she's been doing this for a year now, and nothing is changing. Everything changes. At first quietly, invisibly, and then one day suddenly conception happens. I've witnessed this many times. This happens quite often. But either way, if you have infertility, you need to get treatment. In Moscow, we've cured infertility using gemstones for many women. There are many successful cases. If infertility is present, save money and go for proper treatment. I feel that I am closer to the first category than to the second. How should I develop my character? Which qualities should I cultivate? Those of a scientist or a manager? If you feel closer to the scientist, then develop the qualities of a scientist. That means this is your core. Therefore, you need to do that. But how to know if this feeling is true? This is determined not by fantasy, but by what life has given me to do. For example, you feel that you have the qualities of a scientist, but life constantly gives you some assignments to be a manager. Let's say, for example, you found a job as a manager, let's say, to earn a salary there. But you want, let's say, to be a teacher. It's not a fact that you're a teacher by nature. A person often wants what they don't have. You see? You simply need to develop those character traits that correspond to reality. This is what life actually has you doing. So develop those character traits accordingly. You don't need to make anything up in your life. If your teeth are loose, please advise which stone should be worn. Well, for example, if the teeth are loose, it means the sun is weak in your body. You should wear a garnet on your left hand, 4 to 5 carats. A garnet stone. You need to wear 4 to 5 carats on your left hand. That will make your teeth loosen less. But this is an exception. Just because I answered this one, it does not mean you should now ask me about hemorrhoids and everything else. Is it too late to have a first child after 30? Not late at all. You can have your first child even at 40. These fears come from the doctor's rigid mentality, their pedantic approach. A woman must stay young at heart. She should simply prepare her body, practice yoga, stretch the pelvic and leg muscles, lead a healthy lifestyle, prepare mentally and physically for childbirth. You can give birth to a perfectly healthy child even at 40. No problem if you sincerely want it and are willing to put in the effort. But it's possible to give birth to a healthy child. Can a woman want a child if she has nowhere to live and nothing is expected to improve soon? And she is already over 30? Raise your hand who asked this question. In 2.5 years, you will have a place to live. In 2 years, you will no longer be in need. Your karma will improve, and in a year, life will already start getting easier. So you can calmly plan for children. Okay? Don't be afraid. Most people ask such questions when the bad karma is already behind them. They're still shaking from the past and think, the difficult period is still ahead, but it's already over. When God gives a woman the inner knowledge that it's time to conceive, it means everything is already arranged. A woman begins pregnancy, and the world around her starts organizing itself. Her father suddenly says, let's exchange apartments so you can live normally. Or someone else, or relatives help, or opportunities appear. When a person follows the voice of God in their heart, life opens doors around them. A person should not be afraid. If a woman feels strongly that it's time to conceive, she must not miss this moment. No astrologer can calculate conception better than a woman's own heart. If your heart says now, urgently, then now. If your heart says not now, absolutely not, do not conceive, then by no means should you conceive. A difficult period is passing, and you should wait. The desire will return when the time is right. So then you need to inspire that desire in your husband. Wow, what a question. Why, if I do what I love and know how to do, Why not do what you love and know how to do? I didn't understand the question. Don't ask long questions. I can't read and understand it. The question should be brief and concise. Imagine me reading a huge paragraph aloud, 4 or 5 minutes wasted for everyone. What's the point? Be brief and people will be drawn to you. What planetary influences dominate Estonia? Very slow-moving ones. Very slow ones. I'll tell you about Estonia now. Definitely Venus. Venus and Saturn. Venus and Saturn dominate Estonia. Saturn slows things down. Everything is fine. I really liked Estonia. The people are so good, so considered. Next question. Is a woman fulfilling her purpose if she doesn't work but has a family and hobbies? She is fulfilling it completely. A woman doesn't have to work. Female nature means that a woman is born to receive things without working. If a woman is developed as a woman, if she is strong as a woman, she will receive everything without working. She has such power inside that a man, as soon as he sees her, he's immediately like, wow, his income increases tenfold. Because feminine energy awakens the masculine force, a man works better and earns more. When a woman lives according to her feminine nature, she doesn't have to work. She doesn't need to work herself to exhaustion. She must become a woman, and when a woman fulfills her feminine duties, the universe provides for her. She doesn't need to work at all, you see? Her work is home, children, atmosphere. She may work, but as a pleasure, not as survival. This is how feminine energy works. If a woman lacks feminine energy, then yes, she'll have to work. What can you do, you see? Life is like that. You need to learn to be a woman. Which qualities should a woman that belongs to a first type cultivate if she works as a company director but wants to stay connected to her feminine nature? The first type is not the director of a company, that's the second type. A woman can also be a director, absolutely. These 4 types apply equally to men and women. And a woman can manage a company. But how should she lead? A woman should lead the way a mother leads. She should lead with love. She might say, Johnson, why are you drinking again? He'll answer, I couldn't hold myself that time. Johnson, listen, if you come in drunk again tomorrow, I'll have to fire you. Not because I don't like you. I care about you. But drinking at work is not allowed. You understand, Johnson? Not allowed. He'll say, all right, I'll try not to drink. And the next day he comes in drunk again. She says, that's it, Johnson, you're fired. He pleads, please don't fire me, please. She calmly says, no, goodbye. You're fired. And he leaves. That's it. Gone. Johnson left. And then she calls him, fine, but this is the last time I forgive you. You may come back tomorrow. Don't disappoint me. People will respect such a woman. She behaves like a woman, but inside she is firm, capable of leading a team. When a woman is a manager and manages correctly, everyone fears breaking the rules, because you can't fool a woman. She sees right through people. Her heart works. A woman must not lead by pressure. That's the masculine way. I told you, why are you drunk again? You see? A man can lead with force. He can allow himself a harsh tone. But a woman should not do this. It diminishes her. A woman leader should resolve everything calmly, gently, like a mother. If someone comes in crying, comfort them, but still remain firm. A mother can discipline. One must be able to punish. This is what a woman leader is. Mozart and Brandt, what constitution do they have? If a person gives knowledge through music, for example, playing piano or violin, and people receive emotions that make them live, really give them life, then this is a first-type person. They teach through music. Someone may be a genius musician and play a violin. Looks like a fourth type, but if you teach people through music, then that's the first type. Every profession has all four types. For example, an actor. If they act to earn money, they do business using acting skills for money. That's the third type. If they act to teach through their roles, the script teaches people. That's the first type. If a person is, let's say, an actor, because they simply enjoy being an actor, that's the fourth type. That means it varies. If they run a theater, that's second type. What is wrong when a husband wants children but refuses to officially register the marriage for 8 years? It means the wife has no power in this relationship because the power to establish a marriage comes from the woman. A man naturally avoids extra responsibility. That's normal. So the woman must behave in a way that leads him to register the marriage. This is her duty. She should gently tell him about it 50 times if needed. We need to marry. We should register our marriage. It's important for us. Not 50 times in one day, but every day. Eventually, he has no escape. Because when a woman truly wants something for a man, it's easier to hang himself than to forbid it. It's impossible. That's how strong her energy is. Women don't know their own power. You don't understand this. This is 100% fact. Sometimes a man suppresses a woman so much that she fears saying a word, and she thinks he is mentally stronger than her. But this is nonsense. When a woman finally reaches her limit and he keeps pressuring her, she suddenly says calmly, "Get out." Calmly like that. He replies, "I'll kill you for those words." She quietly packs her things and leaves to her mother's for 2 weeks. He calls her later, "My dear, when are you coming home?" She answers, "I'm not coming back." "I think we shouldn't live together. We'll live separately." He begs, "I love you. Please come back." There you go. He suffers and she doesn't return. And suddenly she sees, it turns out I can influence a man because she is the source of love. If she withdraws just a little, that's it. He's done. He can be angry, he can shout, but without love, he collapses. He begins to melt before her. And in that moment, she must remain calm. Do not react. First he'll bend and snap, yelling things. You must withdraw even further. Soon he will soften. Don't react. When he sits next to her and says, "Tell me what's wrong. Explain it to me. I want everything to be good between us." Only then should she talk calmly and explain what's wrong. A woman has power. She must know it. If a woman doesn't understand her own strength, she can't even get her husband to register the marriage. It means she doesn't understand her power in relationships. The world is harmonious. There is no such thing as the man has power and the woman doesn't. That is simply untrue. How should a woman build a relationship with her husband if he cannot have children? If he cannot have children biologically, then she must gently, gradually persuade him to accept the idea of adoption. Because a family must have children, there are only two ways a family can exist harmoniously. The family dedicates itself to serving people. For example, the husband is a preacher and the wife supports his mission. This is normal. In that case, it is acceptable not to have children. Or the family leads a regular married life and enjoys each other, but then this enjoyment, the energy of pleasure, accumulates in a closed space. And this is impossible to contain. Eventually, this energy becomes destructive and starts breaking the family apart. So children must appear, naturally or through adoption. To make a husband open to adoption, a woman must treat him correctly, serve him with kindness, and gradually his heart will soften and he will want children. Is euthanasia merciful? What is that? Huh? What? This is complete nonsense. Helping a person die is nonsense. There are 3 reasons why euthanasia is requested. First option, relatives ask because they cannot take care of the person. Second option is when a person themselves asks because they suffer. There you go. Third option is when the medical system cannot afford to support them. When, for example, treatment is too expensive and they are living on a blood transfusion machine. All 3 reasons are not merciful. If relatives want them dead, leave them alive. According to the laws of the Vedas, a person must be left alive. If they want to die, leave them alive. But if, let's say, there aren't enough medications to keep them alive, or rather, there isn't enough money. If the state, for example, invented a blood transfusion apparatus, it must also invent a law that supports those who cannot pay for it, so that they are kept on this apparatus for as long as necessary. You see? Otherwise, the state becomes a killer and will answer for that. Therefore, all 3 of these options are unacceptable. No one has the right to kill a person, not by their will, not by the will of others, not for any practical reason. Everyone who kills will answer according to the laws of life. A person did not give themselves life, and therefore cannot take it away. But can a person be killed at all? There is such a law in nature. A person can be killed only when they have accumulated too many sins. In such extreme, rare cases, a pure judge, someone who can truly see a person's fate, may decide to end that life to give the soul a new chance. Because if a person has committed more sins than their own strength can purify, they can no longer become a better human being, then this person will have to be killed. There is no other way but to give them a new life, to give them an opportunity to develop, you see. This is extremely difficult to understand, but such a law exists. A person may commit so many sins that continuing life will only destroy them further. They will degrade. Then a pure judge may end their life. But there is a but. If the judge is not pure, not spiritually clean, they have no right to apply this law. However, modern states do have death penalty laws, and this can also be justified. It can be justified as part of cosmic justice. But in our era, people are rarely spiritually pure enough to understand who deserves punishment and who does not. Therefore, most people who suffer from wrongful punishment are simply experiencing the consequences of their past life karma. No one ends up in prison for no reason. There is always a deeper law behind it. Truth, that's understandable. Let's figure out what is the ultimate truth. Everyone has their own truth. So is it a different truth? There is no other truth. There is a truth that lives in our heart. And even if someone paints a horse and shows it to you from the painted side, the truth inside your heart will still tell you what color the horse really is. There is only one truth. There is no second version of it. Don't think otherwise, because there is a force that determines what is true and what is not. And a person who is connected to this force cannot be deceived. The Vedas say that the purpose of every soul is to love God and serve Him. You ask why, besides the spiritual world, God created the material world, where society believes in Darwin's theory and not in a higher power. What for do God need souls who don't believe in Him, don't love Him, and don't serve Him? This is a wonderful question. The problem is that, having forgotten our spiritual nature and our divine origin, we cannot understand God. We do not realize that we are infinitely more dear to Him than we can imagine. We don't understand that God maintains this entire system we call our body so that we can live and try to understand how to live correctly. A human being has free will. They can choose a life without God or a life with God. And God gives this freedom because to Him we are His closest friends. You see, He finds profound happiness in His relationship with us. Let me explain how the Vedas describe this world. There is the complete whole and immense source of happiness called God. And there are tiny individual souls created to receive this unlimited happiness. I'll explain this to you now. Can you receive endless happiness from something tiny? No, endless happiness can only come from something vast, something endless. Therefore, some people think, why is He God? He has it better, while I, being small, have it worse. But according to Vedic knowledge, it is actually the opposite. A tiny soul can receive love millions of times greater than God receives. Why? Because it connects with something infinitely greater than itself. You see, the world is created in such a way that there is the one who gives love and the one who receives it. We are the receivers of love. God cares for us and we receive His love. But if we ourselves begin to give love back to Him, then we can receive love 1,000,000 times more. Because right now He gives us as much love as we need for life. The more love we offer, the more we are able to receive endlessly. Love can grow forever. You see, this process has no limit. Love can grow forever. But we are so closed and fearful in this world that we do not feel or understand this principle. This is our problem. So when we try to judge God from our narrow human perspective, why did He create this world? We are essentially trying to answer a question only God Himself can explain. Ask Him directly. Why do relationships deteriorate when someone owes you something? Or feels guilty toward you? Because these situations rarely contain true selflessness. If you don't want to ruin a relationship, don't lend money. Just give as much as you are comfortable giving. Because when you lend, there is always a chance the person will be unable to repay. Not because they are bad, but because their fate is such at the moment. They simply don't have it. And then the relationship is damaged.